putting together all of the theory in Module 2, designing report layouts, it's one of my favorite things to do is to create a report template. The report template then becomes a starting point for all of the reports that I develop. So here I've just launched Report Builder. The Getting Started window is opened, and this time, sorry, Paginated Report Bear, no wizard. So I'll click the blank report instead. The number one thing to do at this point is to save. So File, Save As. I'm going to save this to the local machine, whereupon I have a solution folder for the work that I do. And the name of this report then is going to be Report Template. Save. All right, now as a template, it's going to be the starting point for other reports that I develop. So the first thing that we're going to look at is that we've got the insert ribbon that presents to us all of the different regions, visualizations, and report items. And what I'm going to do then is ensure that on the view ribbon that everything is open. You see by default the properties pane is not, so I'm going to open it. I'm also going to open the parameters pane. Remember, it's my preference they're all open. I don't think I even need the parameters pane, but I get that out of the way up front. Now, to select the report itself, in fact, it's a lesson in its own right to know what selection means and how to do it. So, for example, by clicking in a blank area, in fact, I've just clicked in here, and I want you to notice that the properties pane provides a description of what's currently in focus. There's the body. What would happen if I click in the dark area around? We can then see it's actually the report that's in focus. All right, so get used to this because at first it doesn't seem quite natural or it might be confusing about what's in focus. And it's really important because if you have the wrong thing in focus, you start formatting the wrong things. Don't worry if that happens, by the way, because Control-Z is your friend, all right? So be prepared to make mistakes. But as you become more proficient, it's like getting in there, selecting the right object, and then configuring it. All right, so when it comes to configuring the report, you could click the dark area. That's one way to do it. And then when it comes to the properties of the report, they're available to us in the properties pane, or the most commonly accessed are available through the properties page. Now, there are multiple ways to do the same thing. So even by right-clicking that dark area, an alternative way to get to it is by using the context menu. So here's the property page for the report itself. And now is the time that we pay close attention to the page units, and I'll leave them in inches, whether I'm designing portrait or landscape, and it will be a portrait template. Here are the pre-configured paper sizes, and I think we'll leave it at letter, in which case the width and height are automatically filled in for us. So the next consideration would be, do we need to modify what the margins are doing? And for today, we'll leave them at the defaults at 1 inch each. Okay, so a quick mathematics on this, Chris. What's the maximum width that my report body can be?
Well, your maximum width, if your report body has two 1-inch margins, would be 6.5.
All right. That's 8.5.
Yep.
Subtract a left margin of 1 and a right margin of 1. Okay, so there's no need for me to actually change these properties at this stage. Or no, let's change them just to make things interesting. 0.5. So Chris, test. How much space for width does my report body have now?
I think 7.5, Peter.
There we go. 8.5 subtract 0.5 subtract 0.5. All right, click OK. That has updated the report properties. Now, what isn't clear, especially for a beginner, is that we've actually got two regions here. Let me highlight that this is in fact the report body, and beneath it is the report footer. How do I know that? Well, if I click in that empty area, remember I'm confirming that that is the body. There is no header at the top. There just isn't. If I click beneath that dashed line, then there's the report footer. Now, my intention is that every report should have a page header, and the way that I can turn that on is come to the Insert Ribbon tab. Here in the Header and Footer group, I've got the ability to click on Header and add it, or right-click in this dark area, and I can add the page header here. All right, so now I have three regions. I'm going to click to select the header, and here I've got the height of 1 inch. Let me go ahead and select the property of height, and I'm going to change that to become 0.5 of an inch. Actually, I reckon 1's better. I would like 0.5 for my footer. So I'll come to the footer, select it, and set its height to 0.5. Now, the text box that we have by default, what would have happened if we didn't add a header, Chris, would be if we put our title.
It would only show on the first page.
It would only show on the first page because it's at the top of the body.
Yes.
All right, now the intention is I want that text box to be on every page. So having selected it, do you see the way that the border around? And also this four-headed arrow gives me the ability to reposition it.
That's right.
And I'm allowed to reposition it into a different section. Remember, these are just rectangles.
That's
They're
right.
very special rectangles.
That's right.
So I'm going to drop it up into the header. Now it guarantees that it will repeat on every page. I could drop it to the very top left, but let me show you right now that with that text box selected, here in the Properties pane under Position, I can expand the group for location, and I could manually update that left and top to 0
Yes.
and position it right where I need it. All right, now it might be easier if I scale this up because there's a lot of precision work that I need to do here. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do, in anticipation that the top right, I want the AdventureWorks logo. So I could just drag drop this, or, I'm a sort of precise guy, so I want to come to the size property, and here I'm going to control it that I would like that width to be exactly 6.5. 6.5? That looks good. Notice the way that the width exceeded the width of the body that was there by default. Now, in fact, what did we describe was the maximum width of the body, Chris?
7.5 inches.
7.5 inches. So let's go ahead and click the body and see that its width is 6.5, but I can extend it to 7.5. Be careful. If it's 7.51,
Yes.
we're then going to end up in some trouble. So that's
Yes.
precisely, in fact, the maximum width that we're allowed to have there.
Well, this is where we get into the whole concept of pixel perfect. You have full control over all of these items.
Exactly. And that's the way I like to do it in the Properties window because size, location, it's all there. Now, selecting the text box again, we mentioned that it's very similar to a cell in a worksheet. So coming to the Home ribbon, I can do things like modify the font size. Let's reduce this to 20. Let me make it bold. And let me put a border style. I like the idea that the bottom of the text box is a line. I think it looks quite sharp.
It does.
So here on the ribbon, we've got a border group, and here I'll just turn on that there will be a bottom border. So I don't need to add a line. That was my point earlier. Awesome. Now, what we're going to do is use an expression that will return the name of the report in that text box. And so by right-clicking a text box, you'll see the context menu allows us to launch the expression builder. This is a common thing to do with the text box. And the expression builder says, well, this is for the value of your text box. The equal sign is in place, so we just need to come up with an expression. You'll see the cursor is positioned right after the equal symbol. And here below that box, in the category list, we've got built-in fields. And simply by double-clicking report name, it injects the expression to return whatever the report name is. Remember, in Report Builder, though, it will return empty string. Clicking OK, have a look at the notation here, Chris. So when you see a text box that has square brackets, it's telling you that it's a shorthand notation for an expression. If it has an ampersand, then it represents a built-in field.
That's right.
So at a glance, you already know what the expression is. You don't have to open up the expression builder. All right, I'm going to add another text box because often when you've got parameters in reports, you need to convey back to the report itself so that the reader knows what the filter is that's been applied. Now, when it comes to adding an item to the layout, there's two ways to do it. You can come to the Insert Ribbon tab and you can click on Text Box and then you can click for the location. What I've learned is that I often just click where I want something and you'll see the context menu allows me to insert an item like a text box. So this text box is going to be for storing whatever our subtitle is. Watch the way when I'm resizing this that we've got these bars that help line up. In fact, they're really good. Whoever developed this did a fantastic job, and that pixel precision can be done just by drag, drop, and aligning to existing items.
Yep.
All right.
Just like PowerPoint, for example.
Exactly. So with this selected text box, notice that it gets a very generic name. Often it doesn't really matter what the name is, but sometimes it does because some expressions might want to refer to it. They probably won't want to refer to a subtitle, but for completeness, let me show you that there is in the general group a name here, and providing that you provide a unique name like subtitle, then that will become the unique name for the item in the report.
Yeah, when you don't have many report elements, it isn't as big a deal, but oftentimes you'll have report elements with dozens of text boxes, tables, and other items, and if you just have generic names for all of them, it is difficult to understand what Textbox 31 is.
Yes, especially when there's an error in the expression Textbox 31, you need to go hunting for it.
Yeah.
Because this is a report template, I would go to extra special care, knowing that it's going to be used as a starting point for potentially hundreds of reports.
Exactly.
So we'll go for that detail now. Now, in the top right corner of our page, we want the company logo. So I right-click in that blank area at the top, and I'm going to insert an image. Now that opens up the image properties. And this is where you see that that image could be sourced either from an external URL, it could be embedded directly into the RDL document, or it's being retrieved from a dataset field. Well, we're going to embed an import from an image that I have on my file system. So here on my D drive, and here we are on what we call Lab 2A assets. Here is the AdventureWorks logo. All right, having selected it, we can go ahead and provide a more friendly name for it. So this property window actually lets us set the name as well. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. The image is added to the page. You could either do this through the properties pane, or today I'm happy to just line that up. Awesome. Okay, and so there we have the company logo. What's next, Chris? If we've done the header, I guess next we have to focus on the footer.
Exactly.
And what you'll find is that the blank report, it already included a footer, it already had a text box added. In fact, you can see the name of the text box is the execution time. And in fact, the expression that's been assigned is the global built-in field for execution time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we could probably improve upon this. Remember how the execution time is really UTC.
Yes.
So in my resources, I've got, for Lab 2A, I've got some snippets. And you can see here, and let me copy this first, is a snippet that builds up a string that brings in a formatted execution time, but also adds page numbering. All right. So right-click the text box, open up the expression window, remove everything,
Yes.
including the equal symbol, because when I paste this in, all right, you'll see the equal symbols there. Equals literal text, concatenate, format the global built-in field to this format, continue concatenating some literal text. This is a favorite of mine. The VBCRLF is in fact a constant
Yes.
for carriage return line feed. And then we continue to build up on the next line, the page, and there's the built-in field for page number of total pages. All right, that could all easily be built up in the expression builder by double-clicking these built-in fields to
That's right.
inject them into your expression. But to save time for today, we've done so. Now, Chris, note the what we see in the text box is just this expression token.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed that.
We noticed that. Okay, so the explanation is this, that if your expression is a simple, like a built-in field or a parameter, you'll get a shorthand notation.
Yes.
But the moment that it's anything much more complex, we just get this token informing us that there is an expression in that box.
You know, what's interesting, and they'll drop a little news here, is that one of the developers in the team has actually added a formula bar into Report Builder in an internal private build, where if you go over the expression, you'll see the actual expression fully called out without having to double click into it anymore.
So like a tooltip.
Yes, exactly. But it'll be an expression bar at the top, just like you have, say, in Excel.
I love that idea because it saves me having to poke around. I've got a quick question about that expression.
Yes, exactly.
So let's apply some formats to this text box. First of all, the default was right aligned.
Yes.
In this report, I would like to go for a text align that is left. We're going to put a border style across the top. Now I could do that on the ribbon, but let me show you how I might also achieve that on the properties pane. So here I expand border style and I put a solid border on the top. Next we will put this to the very left. So in my position properties, left 0 inches, the top will be 0.01. And then from a size point of view, let's make it the full width of our body, 7.5, and the height will be 0.4. Okay, this is something that just comes a little naturally, actually, with time and practice.
Yes. And you'll find which areas you end up going. I end up going to the properties pane very often when I could do it through right-click actions, and it's just a force of habit.
Well, I wonder what our report looks like, Chris. One way to find out is to go ahead and preview it. Remember, you've got the choice here on the Home ribbon tab to run from here, or some people find it easier just to toggle between the design and preview down here.
Yes.
All right, so how does it look?
Well, so what's interesting is that, over the years with the evolution of reporting services into today, the initial thought was, hey, I'm building this for a view inside of a browser. And that you could also then print out this content. But over time, what people have used paginated reports for more and more is actually to format this in a way that is a document format so it can be exported, printed, or saved in that format. So this is, again, where this page layout view here in Report Builder is so valuable. So if you were to click on that page layout view in the ribbon up there.
So this one here?
Yes, exactly. So if you click on this, you'll see how now this is how you would expect it to look if you're creating a letter template in this fashion. So this is a great way to see. And again, if you had parameters, you could still interact with this at this point. So you can keep it in this format while you're interacting and previewing it. And it gives you a great way to understand exactly what your end users will be receiving if they export this out.
Beautiful. So it's really validation that we've got within the constraints of our page properties or our report properties of margins and size. And also notice here that the page 1 of 1, that's important too. It was page 1 of 2, we'd be a little suspicious that, okay, there's something not quite right.
There's blank pages or something.
So I will point out just one quick thing here that, I'm going to save this off as a template. Before you save off, you're just going to verify that everything is correct. We've just done a visual inspection. What often happens is, for example, if I just added a text box here, what can sometimes happen is that if you resize things, the body will always resize to accommodate it. So it's actually quite common that, you may not have even noticed it, that by configuring and resizing and adding items, the body just resized to accommodate them. And there could be a problem with that. So, for example, if I delete this text box, it doesn't revert back to the width I need. So my practice is that whenever I'm finalizing a report design, the last thing I do is just check those properties. Click the body. We know 7.5 is the max. For some reason it's stretched beyond that, let's bring it back. And maybe that height should be 2. Check that the header is still 1. Check that the footer is still 0.5.
Exactly.
All right, and then your final absolute test, as Chris has just mentioned, that print layout provides the final validation. So Chris, I think we've arrived at the end of what is now our portrait report template. And we'll use that moving forward as we develop much more interesting reports.
No, this is great, Peter. Thanks so much.